welcome to another episode of Everybody's Got Something. I'm your host, Seth Hoffman. Today we have special guests, Kelly Wilson, bass player, machinist, and Alyson Steinman, bass player and teacher. Let's get into it and have a great time. Kelly, what a pleasure to be with you and to have you here. I've got to appreciate you on stage many times, and now I get to appreciate the man behind the music. Tell us just a little bit about yourself. Of course, your music, and just who is Kelly? Tell us a little bit.
Well, that's a good question. I've been into music for a long time. I'm starting out playing trumpet all through elementary school, middle school, high school, doing marching band, concert band, jazz band, all that kind of stuff. Switched to bass about my senior year. Was really inspired by one of my best friend's cousin who came to Los Alamos, where I kind of grew up, and he was an amazing bass player, and just something that I never really was in my radar at all. Yeah. And so this guy shows up, teams up with two of the other coolest cats in town, who are a great guitar player and drummer, and then just the bass alone, just what he could do with it, the sound, just how it just kind of made me feel.
Can you take us back to that moment? Like, where was it? Was this like at a gig? Were you at someone's house?
This was at Jesse's house, my best friend Jesse.
And you came in that day. I'm a trumpet player. You never thinking that you might.
Yeah, kinda. And it was
like fading at that point.
And it was. I didn't really know if I was going to keep doing trumpet or not. I mean, it was kind of cool, but I mean, I was decent at it. I didn't really know how to read that well. Yeah. I just was more like memorizing a lot of fingerings and notes and whatnot. And so I go into his house, and this cat's like playing all this. Like, this was like in 92, 93. So he came down from Seattle area and brought back all this cool music, that's happening at the time, all the grunge stuff.
Yeah, before the internet was all around, you didn't just get that stuff.
So he's bringing all like this Mother Love Bone and like even more Pearl Jam and all this like just, more Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog. And it was like, and he just is playing along. And then he brings all this Primus stuff too. And it was like, what is happening?
And were you there like just all hanging out? Was it a rehearsal for them? Like, what was the situation?
So these cats were just like sharing a room together, and it was like, whoa. So he's just sitting there just slapping and playing along, doing all these things, and it was like, that is so cool. Wow. I mean, I've never really seen anyone just playing like that. And it was like totally captivating to me.
And did you say something right then, like, "Whoa, the direction of my life might be switching here"? Or was that just like the seed was planted?
The seed was definitely planted, and just slowly, as I watched this guy, he just came for his senior year. Watch him.
Does he know?
He does. He does. And just to watch these guys just pulling off Primus tunes and Rush tunes and Zeppelin and everything else, and he could sing too at the same time, and it was like mind blown, And so getting through high school, go on into college, and I was done with trumpet. Okay. I didn't want to be playing trumpet in my dorm room, didn't want to do this and that.
I know the best way to get the ladies.
Right.
Check this out.
No.
Yeah. But you didn't have a passion for it. It was not, it wasn't something that was pulling you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I appreciated jazz. I really, big Miles Davis fan. All the giants of trumpet back in the day. Yeah. But then just all of that grunge stuff happening, and just the way that music was changing during that time in the mid '90s. I was just kind of all about it. So I had bought a bass from LA Music there in Los Alamos.
How soon after that day?
Oh, that was
that was
probably
later?
No, it was probably quite a few. Probably. It was probably about 6 months or so later on.
Okay, so it was still kind of getting into your system there.
Trying to talk my parents into helping me out, get a bass, and so I had got some bass books.
In the meantime, like people who you knew, did you say, "Oh, can I try that? Can I pick that up a little bit?" Or had you not even picked up a bass?
No, I just was like, let's just try this thing out and let's just go with it, and trying to figure out how the fingers work, how the whole slap thing works, because I just was totally diving into Primus at that time. Yeah. Claypool was like my hero, and so just trying to just playing through like Frizzle Fry and Suck on This through my college,
And
in the college
by
dorm room,
listening, or through tab, or
just listening and just trying to play along with it, trying to
so
figure
probably
out.
those years of trumpet.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you were saying, oh, this really was training you, maybe, in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're already hearing, like what's the trombone, what's these guys doing, what's
Yeah.
these, the woodwinds doing, what are they doing, and
Yeah.
so you're just kind of hearing as far as how everything's blending, which all led into that, and then so it was just how bass fit in was like super cool to me, and just of how people are moving when you're playing bass, or just that was really like, wow, this is very cool,
And did you notice from after that first time hearing your buddy, when did you go to concerts, and did you notice you were hearing the bass in a different way after that, or was there?
And not even too much, because we were kind of limited up there in Los Alamos,
Sure.
and so these guys would play at the little community center there, and we'd all go. We had our little band at the time then. My best friend Jesse, who he was a drummer during that time, and then we had our buddy John Fox playing guitar, and so we would just. First song I learned was "Man in the Box" by Alice in Chains. Just because it was simple. Drop D, and just kind of kept going with that kind of under that kind of a musical vein, and just doing our own kind of jams if we could. Just
When you started playing, did you kind of feel like, yeah, this is like a shoe that fits well, or did you feel like, wow?
It took a little bit of trying to jam my foot into that shoe, just be like, oh,
I want to be good at this.
Yes, and it's like, I wish all the fingers would cooperate, or just like, you just want to rush into it, obviously, and you just want to be instantly good, and it's hard to take that time to really learn, really develop it, really get that feel under the fingers, literally.
We got a clip, maybe you can tell us about this.
Yeah, this is us, Lonn Calanca band at, this was at the Taos Mesa Brewery, I believe, here. And yeah, we really do miss the inside brewery shows there. Yeah, those were some good times, real formative years with the band.
Yeah. And so, speaking of, so tell us about that. Tell us about the groups that you're playing with currently.
So the main current band that that's doing the most music right now is the Lonn Calanca band, LCB. We do a lot of Jerry Garcia band covers, a lot of other jam bands, Widespread Panic, some String Cheese, and it's just been such a great group, just amazing players, and great friends now.
Over there.
Yeah, there's Marble featuring also the great Rachel Ross on vocals.
Yeah. I mean, the collection of folks that you play with, yourself included, is just every time I have seen you all, it just feels like I'm taking a glass of vitamins. I just feel.
I feel very grateful and blessed to be on the stage with these guys. Yeah, just experts at what they do, and just they all love what they do, which is, I mean, that just feeds the love on the stage, and just the cooperation between us, the communication, the listening and respect, that happens, and it's been quite a travel, and so I met Lonn then after auditioning for Let It Grow, and and so he had an ad out and said, "Phil Lesh, where are you?" And how could I not respond to that, And here's a video of us at the canteen.
Oh, right.
Playing one of my friends, Steve Sukop's one of his basses there.
Very cool, very cool.
And Canteen's been a great venue and outlet for us also.
Yeah, you all had a great gig there, I think a week or so ago.
With the Wheel.
Yeah.
And that's another great group with Lonn and Josh Inglis on drums and Willie Ford on the other guitar. And it's kind of, it's nice to have these different little blurps of like Willie Ford, just in his presence and what he brings to that group, how it's different just from all these little things, it's like we may jam a little bit more on some certain things, or he might even speed up things that we just normally take slow. I mean, it's just, you just roll with it, and it's just fun to see what kind of happens out of all that. And just getting to play more Grateful Dead music, which is always a good time.
What are some things you've learned about just not just being in a band, but being a bass player in a band? As over the years you've done it, what are some things, in addition to the technical aspect of it, just other parts of just being in a band?
Yeah, being in a band is it's really a lot of so much listening, really trying to hear, especially with the bass. I mean, and kind of where coming from a Primus kind of a thing, or Rush, whatever, to the Dead even, you know, and those bass players, respectfully, you know, I mean, they just have such a different approach. And so it's, you know, we just kind of, you know, as I just kind of take them all in and do what I can with them to at least give, you know, an honest, somewhat interpretation of it.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I mean, I've been in some other bands where it's just as like, you know, less is more even.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to be filling in everything.
Sure.
Having those notes ring out longer, or just even just feeling where that space is kind of needed in the whole frequency of it all.
Yeah. And
then,
that's just something you feel, or does it something in rehearsals you talk about, or it's just an instinct thing?
it can be something that we can talk about, or for me, it's a little bit more instinct, hearing in what's happening at the moment and what needs to happen to either, you know, even just dynamic-wise, bring things down so that the singer can shine, or it's just in that time of where this is a little bit more solemn part of the song, you know, that we just need to kind of just chill out and just let it just speak, you know. I mean, the dynamics are huge in a band, you know. You can't just be full on the whole time. I mean, unless that's just the band and that's the type of music that you're doing, you know, and then there is space for that. I really do appreciate the ups and downs that's happening.
For sure.
It really brings the audience in, I think, a little bit more instead of just hair full back the whole time, just, oh, it's over. Okay, now we can breathe, you know, but if you just bring it up and down, you have the dynamics happening, you're really listening, the vocals are just right on. I mean, it's more of a show for me, an experience for the crowd, you know, just to really like, whoa, things are happening, like things are changing, like let's really, you know, just from seeing it, you know.
But, and when you're playing, how much, I know some people, like when they're playing, that, you know, their eyes are closed and they're in their world, obviously connected. What does the role for you of the crowd, the people there, whether it's sparse or whether it's super hopping, like how are you? I'm sure you're affected, but what is that like for you? How does that affect your playing or your mood and all of that?
Oh man, it's the crowd is everything, you know, and their energy, how we're feeding off a lot. I mean, if they're into it, we're so into it, you know. And I mean, if they're just kind of hemming and hawing and just kind of walking around, you know, it's just kind of, for us, it's maybe just a little bit more rehearsal-ish for us, you know, in a way. But we still are, you know, we're feeding off of people either getting into it and screaming or whatever, you know. I mean, it's like, you're just like, even if your eyes are closed, you're just like, like, you know.
You get a little bit more marble.
Yeah, another great marble show there.
That's a good spot. It must be like when you're playing someplace that's like where people are dancing. That seems, especially for the kind of music you guys do, it's when you're on, it's difficult to stay in your seat. You know, it kind of pulls you right out of your seat. And so when you're, what's it like for you when you're at a show? You know, do you tend to focus on the bass player more as a bass player? And is that what you
I mean, if it's definitely like a bass-centric band, you know, I'm kind of watching what he's doing, especially, and I'm also watching like the drummer. I'm just kind of watching,
because that's an intimate role, of course. The drummer.
The whole rhythm section. How are they interacting with each other, and also just then the whole band itself. You know, just how those guys are feeding off of each other. And, you know, a lot of it's some just like actual entertainment, you know. I mean, there's some other production stuff happening, you know. I mean, so you can get kind of lost in that, or it just becomes the whole package, you know. And that's the best part of it all, is when it all comes together. But yeah, I'm a bass guy, so I'm always watching the basses.
Well, you have an incredible gift. I mean, long before we ever even talked or chatted, I had a great appreciation. You have that quality that just, it just moves you like inside and out. It's a powerful thing. So tell us a little bit of people who know you on stage but don't know anything more about you. When you're not on stage, tell us a little bit about your life, what you do.
I'm kind of a homebody, you know. I mean, I love being in our yard, messing with our garden, growing, planting things. I mean, I just love that. Or being out in the mountains. Let's see, I love car detailing. I really love I love bringing like just old things back to what they should be in a way.
That's very poetic.
If it kind of tends to want that, some things, you need
Yeah.
that patina, you need that old finish.
Yeah.
But, like if it's just an old ratted thing, I just love to clean it as best as I can, detail it up, make it all shine again and make it like new.
And so how did you get into car detailing and making things beautiful once again? Was that...
That took a while. My parents would always joke just because, I always had like just kind of a messy room always growing up and everything else, just like you
So
were
now
into
you're
this.
into clean stuff.
Right,
Okay.
right. My dad would clean cars and whatever, and
Yeah.
he would use like Dawn, just like whatever. Don't even know any, I didn't know anything about that stuff. So going to college, I had a really good buddy, Skip, who was into car audio.
Okay.
And so kind of along with that, he was really into keeping his car all nice and
Got it.
shiny and this and that, really neat. And so he kind of really showed me of what he was doing. And this was like mid-90s also.
Yeah. And where were you? This was in...
I went to school down at Mexico State, so down in Cruces.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that was kind of what else we would do. I mean, I was playing kind of in some bands there, just still hashing it out, figuring things out.
Yeah.
So this guy just really got me into it, and just like even when I had met my wife, then at the time I was just like, "Can I clean your car?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" Like whatever.
How soon after meeting her was it like, "Ooh, can I buy a drink?" But before,
No.
Can I clean your car? Like, what's
It
your
was
name?
a little while after that.
That's a beautiful thing, though, because I mean, that to be in a nice car. So so tell me a little bit about that. What kind of car did she clean?
She had a VW Rabbit, and it just was like, just like sunflower seeds on the floor just from making that trip because she's from Albuquerque, and it was like, so just back and forth. And she's like, "Why do you want to even clean this?" And I was like, can I like, sure.
My love language, yeah.
Exactly, and I'm a very much acts of service person, and
what a beautiful thing. I mean, what a setting a tone for a relationship to clean. And so the before and after was pretty special.
Yeah, definitely, big difference. And
she's like, whenever the question comes, I do.
and I just kind of kept doing it from here on, and just learning as I go along, just more learning as I go along. What's different kinds of paints from different years of cars into the insides, and just all that stuff. It just was kind of like a stay busy hobby in a way, But then again, it was just always that. I want to take this thing and bring it back to as much as I can back to life, and especially, if you're trying to sell the car or something, and doing that. And it's like, I've never had any problem trying to sell any of my stuff just because it's like they just come and they're like, whoa, like, okay.
Do you have like a full album of like before and after?
I have quite a few, and especially with the cell phone stuff now, it's been a lot easier. And so, there's been a lot of just like, before and after, like, wow, okay, like that's,
Have you ever done that? Have you ever got like an old rickety bass and think like, I can do something with this, or is it mostly just?
Well, I mean, even with that, it's like some of the glossy base finishes, I mean, it's similar to like a clear coat on a car, I mean, and just polishing them up if it needs it, whatever, if there's scratches or gunk or whatever on it. And so, even like my first bass I had, which was an old Vester, which I don't even know if anyone even knows about Vester basses, and that was what Los Alamos Music had at the time. And so even during college, and it was like, I want my bass to look like Claypool's, all nice wood finish, So I like took it apart and I sanded all the red finish off, and thankfully it looked decent underneath,
Like, put the red back on. It didn't work. It was better before.
Right. Yeah. And so I worked on all that thing, and it was like, this is a whole different animal now that it's wood. How do I even protect this thing now? I can't just, I didn't clear coat it or anything. I just had sanded it and was done with it. And then not too long after that, I kind of traded it in for a little bit better.
A red one. No, just kidding.
A little bit better bass, And, but I just like keeping those things clean, keeping them just, ready to go, really. And that's just, keeping them at the, at what they should be as far as I'm concerned. Like, replacing the batteries or replacing any wiring or pots that are dirty or pickups I wanted to replace, and so just the diving into that and just really kind of making it my own.
Can you tell a little bit? You've done a bit of traveling with your music, and with I think Lonn Calanca and some of the other. What's that like for you? I'm always interested about hearing about the travels
traveling.
and,
It's, well, the road life stuff can just be a little bit wearing and whatnot, but yeah, we've slowly started to travel a little bit more, especially some of these Las Vegas shows that we did for the after parties at the Dead and Company, the Tuscany, and then same again doing San Francisco again, doing the Golden Gate band shell run with Brian Melvin and that Grateful Jam. It's interesting and it's fun, especially with Lonn and I. I mean, we just even more time to bond and share stories, talk about future things even, and kind of what's happening in each other's lives. And so it's been great to know Lonn and really develop that relationship. He's a really great friend and great musician, and what he does, I think he does very, very well.
He's a gifted spirit.
Definitely is. Yes, and grateful for him. And so the traveling has been
it's
fun.
Good. It's nice in doses. You don't fantasize about being on the road 300 days a year.
No, definitely like not. Yeah, I mean, just being on the road enough is, it's wearing. So, but
so it's nice. It's nice to come back home, though.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, traveling every few months or something like that, or even a little bit more is. Definitely easier on the family and the wife time and everything else. So.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges for anybody is just to have that balance of
balance it.
Filling your heart and soul with these things, but also, all of it's part of your heart and soul, though, your family and all that you do.
Yeah, keeping it all balanced, because I mean, being out on the road and if you're leaving with stuff happening at the house, or just even distractions.
Right, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let them down.
Right, yeah. Even little arguments or stuff like that. When you're leaving, you're just in a weird headspace, So just kind of keeping that as positive and balanced as we can just helps. So when we're out on the road, we can just really focus on what we're doing and everything else instead of just worrying so much than what's at the home front, Yeah.
So. And you're a father, and your kids are. How
I have 3 daughters. The oldest one she's already married.
How about that?
How old is she? She's 28. She's married, living up in Glorieta. Okay. Then I have my middle daughter. She's also married down in Las Cruces. And she's a teacher down there, and she is 24. And then my youngest one is going to graduate high school next month.
Wow.
So finally be some empty nesters.
Wow.
And she'll be going down to state this next semester too. So.
Wow. Well, I'm sure they think their pop's pretty cool, dude.
Who knows?
Well, your pop is pretty cool. Yeah. So before we close out, is there any, kind of folks in your life who you would, like to thank, or who've given special wisdom or encouragement to you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my parents. I mean, they've been just the biggest supporters of everything that we do. I mean, everything that I've done, even going back to school and learning the machine trades and, getting out of retail to the music stuff, they've just been full on supportive, and I can't thank them enough, and grateful and appreciative to them. And, definitely my best friend, Jesse Boudreau, lives up in Chimayo, kind of like my center, brings me back to where I need to be.
That's a gift. That's such a special gift.
Such a special gift. The way he lives his life, the permaculture aspects of what he does that he's brought into my life, and how I tend to the yards, and just even a lot of different aspects of your life. Permaculture is more than just how you plant and observe things. It's all aspects of that throughout their life. Chuck Keller, who was the bass player that got me inspired to play bass.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. Love and gratitude to you. And just everyone along the way. I mean, there's so many different people kind of keep me going, and just even like just giving me the praise even of that, which I just sometimes feel like, I'm just kind of think I'm just doing my job here. I just don't, I really appreciate that, and it just all is all absorbed, and I just appreciate anyone who's been to our shows, danced to our music, and come up and said anything. And I appreciate you always too for coming to shows and just your very kind words.
My true pleasure.
So yes. So.
Well, thank you. You're an inspirational fella, and just an honor to know you. And thanks so much for being here and sharing your talent and sharing your story. And God bless you, my friend, and your family and your girls and all you do.
Yeah.
And look forward to seeing you and hearing you many, many, many more times.
Oh, I appreciate that. And much love to my wife, too, for putting up with me for all these years. We'll be married for 29 years this year, and I'm so grateful for you, Amber.
We're all grateful for you. Thanks for keeping this guy strong and loving him. And we all love you and appreciate you. And more to come.
I appreciate you.
All right. All right, we are here with Alyson Steinman, and with your buddy bass right here. Is such a pleasure to have you here on the show. I have appreciated your bass playing and your music for a long time, so I'm glad to get to hear your story. So tell us a little bit about, maybe let's start off with how did you get to become a bass player? Was this your first instrument? Tell us the backstory of the bass.
A long time ago, when I was a little child.
Everyone gather around, boys and girls.
I think the first instrument I played was piano, but it was me dunking around on the piano. I used to play along to my mom's records, and just single note stuff as a little kid. But I was starting to figure out songs. Like when I was about 6, I was like figuring out melodies, and really I was playing like the comp lines a lot of times.
Is that right?
Yeah, and then I took lessons for a little bit, but I didn't know how to practice, and my parents didn't want to force me to practice. So I would like play by ear. Like I'd come in and struggle reading music, and then my teacher would say, no, it's like this. And she would play it, and then I would play it back to her, and she'd be like, oh, you must practice every day. And I'm like, so I just found out that if I heard it,
that was some
I could.
Incredible ear training at a young age.
Yeah, because I was like, oh no, I have to learn this. So like then I would listen to her play it, and I'd play it back to her.
Wow.
So.
And did you realize that was a special talent, or did you just think like, well, I just winged it here? Because most people can't just do that.
I don't think I was conscious really at the time what I was doing, but I figured out later that I was quick at figuring out how to play songs. Like I started playing guitar at about 14, and I started figuring out songs from recordings. And I found I'm like, if I was around other like friends, in high school that were playing, and it'd be like, you're not playing those chords right. And then I like learned the chords. I learned everything off the records, but. And I noticed that I was able to do that, that was a skill that I had.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in 3 states. I was born in Seattle, but my dad was a graduate student, so it was, transitory. My parents are from LA. My family's from LA. I lived in Urbana, Illinois for primaria, for elementary. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to Rhode Island when I was 11. So I was there from 11 to 16, middle school and a little bit high school. And that was like
parents' job or what?
Parents divorced. Okay. Dad fell in love with someone who was from there. So we went to Providence, me, my dad, my brother, and then we moved and then he remarried, and we moved to New Mexico to Santa Fe.
Wow, so you've been all over the country. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how old were you when you came to New Mexico?
16.
16. And were you like, okay, I'm home now, or was this you've come and gone?
Generally, well, we moved to Santa Fe, and then I moved to Albuquerque when I was 18. And Albuquerque's been the one town I keep coming back to. Yeah. So I left for 5 years. I lived in San Francisco, and then I came back, and I lived in the Manzana Mountains for 4 years, and then I came back, and then I was here for a long time, 25 years, and then I went to the Peace Corps in 2017 and to Peru, and came back in March of 2020 and got stuck, of course. Couldn't leave March of 2020.
And did you speak Spanish before you went? I know you speak Spanish now. Is that where you learned or solidified it? Or?
That's where I solidified it. I mean, I didn't really speak it. I was around it, and I took classes at UNM because I was like frustrated playing in Wagogo not being able, and like phonetically saying the
Sure,
words and be
sure.
like, I want to understand
Yeah,
this. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
ended up going back to school mainly for that.
Wow, okay. Can you
and-
tell us a little bit about that time in Peru? That sounds like probably a special chapter of your life.
Yeah, I did the Peace Corps when I was 53
Okay.
till 55, 56. So
Okay, now you're like
55.
42 now.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got younger.
Yes.
Since I got
see
back.
that. I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so you're 53. How old did you say when you started the Peace Corps?
53.
53. And
Yes.
And did you know what you were signing up for, or had you met people who had done it?
My story with Peace Corps is that my uncle was one of the first years of the Peace Corps in the
Wow.
60s when I
Wow,
was
wow,
born.
wow.
He was in Nigeria.
Wow.
So back then it was UCLA. John F. Kennedy was president and started the Peace Corps and put these posters at like UCLA where he was going to school.
Yeah.
To go travel the world, do
Right.
volunteer work.
Yeah.
And so he spent 3 years in Nigeria in some little remote little
My gosh.
village back then and loved it.
Wow.
And I grew up looking at the photo album that he was sending of the photos from Nigeria, black and white,
Yeah.
you know, and just knew how cool he was that he
Yeah.
did that. So
Yeah.
I knew that at some point you need a bachelor's degree to go.
Okay.
And so I got my bachelor's degree at 43 years old.
And with that kind of in mind.
And possibly being a teacher because you could do the alternative licensure.
Sure,
So
sure.
I kind of did it in a weird way, but.
And was this your decision, or someone said, you know, Alyson, you should get your bachelor's degree, or was this as your decision that you knew this was going to give you the tools?
Yeah, it was that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so you got your bachelor's degree in.
University studies, because by the time I was in like my late 30s, early 40s,
Yeah.
I started with Spanish, but then of course I was in Wagogo and I was playing African drum stuff for African dances classes, and so I was taking classes in whatever had to do with music
Yeah.
and culture.
Yeah.
In the university, which meant that I was taking classes in Chicano studies, African American studies,
Yeah.
ethnomusicology, stuff in the music department, stuff in American studies,
Incredible.
anything that I could. And the advantage that I had was that I was getting like these classes that were the professors' like signature work, like what they were really
Wow.
working on,
Yeah.
like Enrique La Madrid, you know, Dr. Madrid, he was doing corridos. And so I learned about corridos in
yeah.
his class, and he was doing all these museum things, and that was his main work. And then Dr. Finney Coleman, I worked with him, and he was doing his hip-hop studies and writing his books and doing his work. And then Dr. Stephen Feld, who is a well-known ethnomusicologist who was working part-time at UNM and doing from his books
Yeah.
that he had written. And so for me, then I went backwards. It was like after doing all these great courses and I had to do my core stuff,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now I have to take like Geology 106 and I have to
Should have
take...
done this in the beginning.
Yeah,
got it out of the
exactly.
way,
It was
yeah.
kind of like that, you know. It's like, all right, I have to do all the prereqs, and I did that last, you know.
Okay,
So then I was like kind of ready to get out of school.
Yeah.
But I was also in Wagogo, working, playing, doing dance classes, and getting my bachelor's.
And is that your nature to be very busy, and have you always been that way, or just since you had the real incentive and push at that time?
Yeah, I can tend to be a bit of a workaholic, though I
Yeah.
would say less now. Well, once I got, kind of.
Oh, let's check this. Tell
Yeah.
us, what are we seeing and hearing?
This
here?
is the Santa Fe Plaza series with Wagogo. Like I was saying, there's not a whole lot of videos of Wagogo when I'm there. And yeah,
Wow, incredible.
so
incredible.
this is.
And tell us, how did that come to be, playing with Wagogo?
When I came, I lived for 4 years in the Manzana Mountains in a Sufi retreat center.
For how long?
4 years.
Wow.
And that was sort of a story.
You have some chapters.
Yeah. Before I went to...
You could have a whole show of each chapter.
Well, before I went to college,
Okay.
it was about 20 years of me doing other stuff. Wow. Back, I'm old, and back when I was little, you graduate with a...
experienced.
Yes, I'm very old and experienced. Yeah. But when I was young, getting a high school diploma was kind of like what college is now.
Right.
So I was just really lucky, that I had a high school diploma, and then I just knew I could work. Mm-hmm. So that was my thing. So you see.
I like the dance. I love how he dances with his guitar.
Absolutely, very inspiring. And
okay, so you were 4 years in a Sufi retreat center.
And those were the 4 years that I was not playing music.
Okay.
I was studying, but I was dancing and listening to a lot of Arabic music.
Yeah.
And
just real quick, the Sufis, did you do the thing where they like spinning? Yes.
Yeah. My teacher, Adnan Sarhan, is from Iraq.
Okay.
And he was part of several different Sufi traditions.
Yes.
And one of them was Mevlevi, which is the people that whirl.
Yeah.
And so we did that. There was a lot of music. There was a lot of dance. And so that impacted me in a different way, even though I wasn't playing music.
Sure.
But at some point after, that's where to have a job there, I learned how to weave. And so I had a weaving business for almost a decade. And so I came to Albuquerque because I wanted to play music again, because I had left music, and I knew this musician, Chuck Hawley.
Oh, of course.
Chuck Hawley, I met him somewhere. He asked me to come play for his band, which at the time was Saha World Telegraphed.
Okay.
And that was my first entrance back into playing bass. I hadn't really played in about 4 years.
Wow. And did it come right back? Was it rusty or?
No, it was rusty for sure. Yeah, I didn't have it, and I'm not even sure how good I was before that. But I lived in San Francisco for 5 years, and we moved as a band from Albuquerque to San Francisco.
Wow.
Because we heard, in Albuquerque, and we're talking like the 80s, early 80s.
Yeah.
If you were playing original music as punk bands or whatever it was in the day, you had to play in garages. It's like you didn't get paid for anything. It's like so we heard in San Francisco you get paid. Okay. So we decided to move to San Francisco. But I mean, we weren't that good. But
and was it true? Did you get paid in San Francisco?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, we did a little, but it was like clubs actually made money from having small time bands, just with a scene, getting people who would come and pay covers and stuff. So it was definitely more of an underground. Here it was like club rack, garages basically, or community centers. Like South Broadway, West Side Community Center and stuff. I saw Black Flag, and I saw the Meat Puppets and all the stuff in community centers here.
Wow.
And garages. So you saw these big acts, and they would come through here and play garages.
Wow, incredible.
So, yeah.
Incredible.
So I saw I got to see Dead Kennedys and stuff. When you go to San Francisco, of course, that's they can survive a bit there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we went, and I was there about 5 years, and then I went back to live in the Sufi retreat.
Wow.
And then when I got back to Albuquerque, I started with Saha, and about 2 years later, someone asked me if I would. Well, Armando asked me if I would sub for a summer because Terry Bloom was going to be touring in Europe or something.
Okay.
So I was the sub for Wagogo for a few months, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to play in Wagogo, but Terry came back.
Okay.
But then eventually, Terry said, "Hey, I'm too busy with this other stuff, so can you, if you want to take over Wagogo?" So that was the beginning.
Wow. And how did you know Armando and did you?
I don't know. You're
just
out
from
there,
the circle,
and from the circle of musicians, and so he asked me to sub, and he liked my bass playing. So when Terry left, he asked if I would come and play.
Wow! And so how many years did you play with Wagogo?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, yeah. I
Incredible.
was the bass player for 20 years.
Wow, wow.
So-
I remember seeing you back. It must have been like 2002 or 3 at Stella Blue, I think probably. And I
Sure.
remember seeing your guys' posters at Blue Dragon for upcoming
Blue Dragon.
shows like
right,
that. Wow.
Right.
Okay, and tell us about Malamanya.
Malamanya started, I was still in Wagogo. Malamanya is, for people who don't know, is 7 or 8 piece women. We do a lot of folkloric music, especially Colombian. We started by doing Colombian covers.
Yeah,
This is an original by Ms. Lydia Garcia Evans,
yeah,
or Evans Garcia.
yeah,
It's older.
yeah.
But this is her original cumbia song. But we did like basic, traditional, especially Colombian.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
so Malamanya started, with the wives of 2 musicians here, Kyoko Paz
Okay.
and Ivan Camelo, who both played in Wagogo at the time.
Okay.
As drummer and percussionist, and Jasmine, who was Kyoko's wife at the time, with Ivan's wife Elena, wanted to start playing music Toto la Mofacina. They wanted to play this traditional cumbia, so they got Kyoko's drum set and they were like parting out his drum set and then
Yeah.
having him teach us how to play it.
Wow.
And I had been listening to Toto for like a decade. I loved Toto la Mofacina.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I know these songs, and they're like, about a few weeks in, they're like, maybe you want to go and like play, because they were like asking their friends to come
Yeah,
and play,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, so then I invited Hava, who she's not in this video
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
but she was in that last one,
Yeah.
to come, because she was a professional musician as
Yeah,
well, and
yeah.
and I played blues with her and different things. So so we started as kind of a project learning band that took off,
Incredible.
because it was a bunch of like badass women. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And how many years have you been with?
That started, I'm not exactly sure when it started, something like 2012 maybe?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then, I was in Peru for a while in COVID, so there was some years off,
yeah.
but
yeah.
we've been back at it for the last few years.
And what's that like being, and because of course you also play with Joseph General. And how long have you been with him?
I was playing with Joseph General before I went to Peru, so
Okay.
probably since 2014 maybe.
Okay. Okay. And what's that like
2015?
playing with multiple groups? Is that an ideal thing for you? Is it nice for variety, or if one band kept you busy enough, would you like to be in just one band, or what is it like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. The scene changed. Originally with Wagogo, we played so much that I only was a sub for occasional bands, sometimes for Rudy Boy, sometimes for Withdrawals, sometimes for, I would sub with bands.
Yeah.
But my main thing was Wagogo, because, during the busy season, like April to October, it
Yeah,
was
you
3 to
guys-
5 times a week you were
Incredible.
playing. So
Yeah,
it was a lot, a dozen gigs a month,
Yeah,
so it was a full-time endeavor, besides all the little side jobs and projects that I had. But what happened is, like, with kind of market crashes and things that affect the
Sure,
economy, people were
sure.
like, well, we like your band, but can you do a 3-piece? And they were like,
mhm.
can you do it without the drummer?
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, what? So things started like getting smaller, and then you
Yeah.
had to diversify, and there
Sure,
wasn't
sure.
enough gigs to go around. So,
Yeah.
there's always been gigs, but it's like they didn't want to pay as much.
Right.
So,
We'll get great publicity. This will be good. You'll get your name
it's
out
kinda
there.
like
Thank
after
you.
a while,
yeah.
you're like over it. you know?
Yes. Yeah.
But so to answer your question, I prefer being with one band that's like really going deep into
Sure.
the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like the rest of the week, we used to rehearse 2 times a week and play several times a week. So
Sure.
it was kind of like, but now it's like, well, if I play, a few times a month,
Right.
And then I've got rehearsals once a week, and I'm like, well, what do I do all those other days?
Right,
So then you end up doing projects.
Yeah.
I kind of joke and say, like, if I get too much free time, I'll start another band.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, you're like, well, I really love this music and I want to play it. So
yeah. Speaking of, since you're holding the space, maybe we could hear a little. We can hear a little bit of this. Maybe you can tell us about this beautiful 5-string bass. That you have
it's an Ibanez. It's you know, nothing expensive or anything like that. I like the Ibanez really because I have small hands. I'm only 5 feet tall, so they see me and you're like, your bass is bigger than you are,
right.
which is
your bass
almost
is
true. So for that, these are the Sound Gear basses are thin necks, just like you know, like the old Fenders, or like I have an old Fender that also has a thin neck. So I don't know. Like I say, I'm not a soloist.
Yeah.
I don't like being out front. I love singing backup vocals and harmonies. That's where my brain like is happening. So. So like just
awesome.
You know, these kind of lines, they just frame the songs, especially, you know, Bunny Wailer.
Yeah.
I mean,
and did you learn that just from hearing it, or do you learn like the tab? Because that's like pretty intricate what you're playing there. How do you learn like that part, for example?
Completely from recordings.
Okay.
I can read slowly. I don't practice enough. My ear is too fast. So my eyes get bored.
Yeah.
But I do practice periods of reading. For a while I got into chart reading to learn kind of jazzy stuff. But definitely more self-taught. I can't say I have a huge amount of bass mentors besides recording artists.
Okay.
You know? And I still use headphones and learn that way, but I write things down a lot. When I teach, I write charts, and I teach kids how to like write charts and stuff.
Sure. Maybe in the last few minutes you could tell us a little bit about your teaching life, because that is another big part of your life. As well.
I used to, when I was more a full-time musician, I would teach on the side. I would teach like for projects like Jazz Workshop. Amy Beale, I taught 7 years. Jazz Workshop, I taught 7 years with their projects and music. And now, during COVID, I went back to school and got my teaching license legit. So now I'm full-time K through 8 music teacher at Siena Aguas, which is like awesome. And never done elementary, so I end up doing more concentrated classes with middle school, and then elementary just once a week. And so it's like a music appreciation, because it's the whole class. You know, it's not like they're here because they're musicians. It's kind of like how to recognize what notes are, how to find notes on the piano, how to understand how to read chord charts, so they can learn off of YouTube. They can learn off of ways that they're inspired to learn. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And how is that balance? Is it you know, working with, you know, kids, like you said, you hadn't been like with young kids like that. Is it something you're like, oh, I'm glad I stumbled upon this? Is it like, oh, it's like, how is it for you mixed in with the whole world of music that you do?
I love it. I think that teaching, I was always sort of nervous about being a teacher, but at this point in my life, it's like I got it. And I'm learning a lot. Like, what is kindergarten? What's their level of learning? What's second grade? What's their level of learning? Maybe that song is too infantile for them. Maybe that song is too advanced for them. You know, like, these are all, I got a big learning curve. But
I'm sure yours as a musician, like, and your intuition and instincts probably helped with, you know, in a classroom setting as well.
Right. I mean, it's sort of like how people would say, like one of my mentors, Manny Rettinger, who was the Zimbabwe music, brought Zimbabwe music here. And I worked with him in the recording studio at UNM for 3.5 years. And he would always say, you know way more than you think you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I rely on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking, just in our conversation, all the different classrooms you've been in the world between the Peace Corps and the Sophie world, and being a gigging musician and teaching, and all the the classes
Yeah.
you've taken, it's incredible. Sometimes if you're ever at night you can't sleep, you're like, well, there's a lot in my mind here, a lot going on.
Yeah, it kind
Yeah.
of switches from project to project and style
Yeah.
to style that I sort of keep going. But
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a jack of all trades and master of none.
Yeah.
That's sort of like my,
Yeah.
my thing. I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah.
Peru, I did play too. I was in a rock band there that played all like rock en español for about a year and a half every Saturday night from about midnight till whenever
What a
they stopped
trip.
drinking, which was usually somewhere between 3 and 5 a.m. No breaks, just keep playing, so they'll keep drinking.
They're pouring the rum and
Everyone sings, they know all the words to all those songs, but now I know this whole playlist. So
Wow,
it's
incredible. Well, any before we conclude this segment, any words of wisdom that either someone has shared with you or just that have come to you that you can share with the world? That is, I don't know.
Oh shoot. Don't ask why people play. People just play. Like it's a passion. And I'm glad I didn't have a straight job until I was in my late 50s.
Yeah.
But that's what makes us, alive as humans.
Yes.
Music is a human aspect. Just
Yes.
like talking and singing is
Yeah.
it's like something. It's part of every culture in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
All right, well, thank you for everything that you do and that you give to the world of music and that you share with all of us. And I look forward to seeing and hearing you many more times. And so, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Seth.
All right, bless you.
Everybody's got something that nobody else has got.